Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome everyone to this webinar to celebrate the 11th anniversary, the 21st anniversary of the entry into force of the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. We're very pleased that you're joining us this day to celebrate this day, and also as we begin our preparations for the upcoming 11th meeting of the Conference of Parties to the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. Before we go any further, I would like to begin by showing you a message from the Executive Secretary of the Convention on Biological Diversity.
Okay, fine.
Delegates, dear participants, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this briefing webinar. Today's session will help us prepare together for the 11th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, serving as the meeting of the parties to the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, MOP 11. Allow me to take this opportunity to read the national focal points for the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety and other stakeholders who are in attendance today. I look forward to working with you to advance the implementation of the Cartagena Protocol, which entered into force on 11 September 2003. Happy 21st anniversary. There is plenty to celebrate. The Cartagena Protocol underpins multilateral efforts to safeguard biodiversity and ensure the safe transfer, handling, and use of living modified organisms. The Cartagena Protocol advances the Convention's work on key issues at the cutting edge of science and technology, including synthetic biology and aspects pertaining to risk assessment and risk management. And it was under the Cartagena Protocol that parties adopted the Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol on Liability and Redress, which will also be covered by this webinar. The Cartagena Protocol and its supplementary protocol constitute a pillar of the legal foundation that underpins multilateral action to protect nature and people. Implementing them is key to fulfilling the vision of living in harmony with nature, as envisioned in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, the KMGBF. The KMGBF is the world's master plan to halt and reverse biodiversity loss through 23 action targets that must be achieved by 2030. The implementation of the Cartagena Protocol and its supplementary protocol contributes to Target 17 of the KMGBF to establish, strengthen capacity for, and implement in all countries biosafety measures and measures for the handling of biotechnology and distribution of its benefits. Biosafety is a multidimensional challenge that can benefit from the whole of government, whole of society approach that is at the heart of KMGBF implementation. Now, as parties update and revise their national biodiversity strategies and action plans, the NBSUPs, under the CBD, this is a good time to weave the implementation of the Cartagena Protocol and its supplementary protocol into national planning and policy deployment. COP 11 is part of the 2024 UN Biodiversity Conference and will contribute to the success we all want to see in Cali. Next in this webinar, my colleagues in the Biosafety Unit of the Secretariat will present the COP 11 substantive agenda in detail. I wish you an informative session. Thank you.
That was a welcome message from the Executive Secretary. We will now begin the webinar. And as we begin, I would like to start by congratulating all 173 parties to the Cartagena Protocol on this important milestone. We are holding this webinar today and hope that in the process it will help us all with our preparations for the upcoming meeting. Before we begin, a few logistical announcements. The chat function is available to you all throughout the webinar. Please feel free to type messages of support and congratulations to each other on this important milestone. We also have a question and answer option. Please make use of this throughout the webinar to direct any questions you may have to the program officers responsible. We will attempt to answer all your questions as we go along so that we have an interactive webinar. I'd like to stress that this is an information webinar and not a negotiation space. The idea is to share with you the details of the information before you so that you are better able to make your preparations for Kali. We are all excited about Kali, and the Biosafety Unit has tried to make the process as easy as possible for our parties and stakeholders for the road to Kali. We will therefore have a number of presentations by the program officers in the unit, and you're please welcome to provide us feedback. Ulrika, please share the screen. The agenda for COP-MOP 11 has a number of items. You will recall that it's happening as part of the UN Biodiversity Conference. So the meeting will have a number of items that are considered in close proximity to the COP16 and MOP 5. The concurrent agenda items include the opening of the meeting, organizational matters, the reports on credentials, reports of subsidiary bodies, including our compliance committee, administration of the protocol, review of effectiveness of processes under the convention and its protocol, as well as other matters. Next slide. The agenda items that will be considered in proximity with COP16 and MOP 5 relate to the matters related to the financial mechanism and resources, the adoption of the report, and synthetic biology, which is considered under COP16. The substantive items for this COP11, MOP 11 are the report of the Compliance Committee, operations and activities of the Biosafety Clearinghouse, cooperation with international organizations, bodies established under other conventions and initiatives, risk assessment and risk management, detection and identification of living modified organisms, socioeconomic considerations, and Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol on Liability and Redress. During this webinar, we will focus our discussions on those substantive items. Without wasting any more time, I will hand the floor over to my colleague, Peter Gutman, who will provide an overview of the legal and policy issues on this agenda. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Watsi, and good day to all the participants. So the agenda item 5 on compliance deals with the following matters. The Compliance Committee under the Cartagena Protocol reports to the COP-MOP, and a report on the work of the committee's 2 intersessional meetings since the last MOP is presented in the working document CBD-CP MOP/11/3. The chair of the committee will deliver a statement at the plenary session early in the meeting, presenting this report. And then the recommendations of the committee that are contained in the annex to this report will be discussed in Working Group 2 under the agenda item to which they most closely relate. In this case, the recommendations on compliance will be considered under agenda item 5 on compliance, and the recommendations concerning the BCH that will be considered under agenda item 8 on the BCH. To the extent that the recommendations relate to decisions, they will be included in the compilation of draft decisions. The recommendations on compliance in part 1 of the annex to the document consists of a general part and a set of recommendations relating to cautioning a group of parties that have not submitted both their third and fourth national reports. The committee has followed up with the parties included in the caution on their outstanding third and fourth national reports for about the past 7 or 8 years, communicating with these with counterparts at the national level in a stepwise approach and with different addressees. Most recently, the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, the CBD and Cartagena national focal points of these parties have been informed that the committee will recommend to the MOP that it caution them unless they submit their fourth national report before the meeting in Cali. As a result, 3 of these parties have now submitted their fourth national report, and those parties will be removed from the recommended caution. The recommendation still concerns, however, 4 parties. An information document will be made available in the coming days that provides an overview of all the attempts by the committee to encourage these parties to submit their national report that ultimately led to the recommended caution. So you can move to the next slide, Ulrika. So on the agenda item 13 on socioeconomic considerations, the following. In its decision CP 914, the COP-MOP took note of the guidance on the assessment of socioeconomic considerations that had been developed by the ATEC on socioeconomic considerations. MOP 9 extended the mandate of the ATEC to supplement the guidance. In its decision CP 1012, the COP-MOP took note with appreciation of the intersessional work that had been carried out by the ATEC, and it decided on an intersessional information gathering process, recognizing that limited time had been available to make use of these voluntary guidance. The fruits of that process are reflected in the working document CBD CP MOP 11/10, which provides a synthesis of the information gathered in Section 2 and the full summary of the information in the annex. Section 3 of the document provides a draft decision that is the basis for the MOP to consider what further work may be needed. You can move to the next slide. Agenda item 14 deals with the Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol on Liability and Redress. The supplementary protocol entered into force on the 5th of March 2018. Further to decision CP 1013, submissions were made on national measures in place to provide for financial security for damage from living modified organisms. In decision 1013, parties were also reminded to designate a competent authority to carry out the functions under Article 5 of the supplementary protocol. The document prepared for this agenda item, document CBD CP MOP/11/11, provides in section 2 an overview of the status of the supplementary protocol with a regional breakdown of the number of parties. In section 3, there's an overview of information received on national measures on financial security for damage from LMOs. Section 4 contains an update on the number of parties that have published information in the BCH on the competent authority for the supplementary protocol. And finally, Section 5 contains a draft decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We'll now move to the next presentation. Oh, okay, right. It's agenda item 7 on the financial mechanism. This agenda item will be considered in proximity with agenda item 11 of the COP16 agenda on matters related to the financial mechanism, as well as agenda item 7 on the MOP 5 agenda. The document for this agenda item is not yet available, and this is because we still had the process underway for the 6th review of the effectiveness of the financial mechanism of the protocol, of the convention and its protocols. We expect that the document will be available in the coming days. The document will include a summary of the information provided by the GEF in respect of guidance provided by the COP. The summary includes an overview of the biosafety projects that were funded under the GEF 7 after the last meeting, as well as any activities in the current GEF 8 program. The document includes an update on resources identified for biosafety, as well as information on the relevance and process of creating a standalone window for biosafety, as was asked by MOP 10. The key outcomes of the 6th review of the effectiveness of processes will be, previous slide, Ulrika. Previous slide. Okay. The document will also have a summary of the 6th review of effectiveness. Alongside the document, there are a number of information documents that are necessary, including the full report of the Global Environment Facility to the 16th COP, provision of guidance on the Global Environment Facility, as well as the SBI recommendation on the financial mechanism, which makes a number of references to the protocols. In particular, the concern of the low or no projects that have been submitted for consideration under the GEF 8 window for biosafety. Next slide. Agenda item 8 is a report prepared by the Secretariat for consideration. The report provides an overview of the activities carried out by the Secretariat under cooperation with other international organizations and bodies and other initiatives. This report covers a number of activities, including discussions with the OECD. A number of information documents are included, including the report of the 4th Joint Aarhus Convention and Biodiversity Convention Roundtable on Public Awareness, Education, and Access to Information, Public Participation, and Access to Justice. There's also a report of the Global Risk Assessment Workshop that was convened, as well as a report of an international conference on GMO analysis and new genomic techniques that was convened in Berlin in 2023. We'll now move to the next agenda item. And this agenda item is agenda item 8, on the operations and activities of the Biosafety Clearinghouse. I will now hand over to Anastasia to give this introduction.
Thank you, Watsi. Agenda item 8 deals with operations and activities of the Biosafety Clearinghouse under Article 20. This agenda item has 2 documents. One of them is the official document, CBD CPP MOP/11/7, that is titled Operation and Activities of the Biosafety Clearinghouse. This document describes the status of activities that were undertaken by the Secretariat pursuing. Yes? Hello?
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so this document describes the status of activities undertaken by the Secretariat pursuant to the previous decision that was adopted at the previous COP MOP, decision 10/5. It also describes the work carried out in response to decision 10/9, which deals with the development of online format for the 5th National Report on the implementation of the Cartagena Protocol and ensuring its availability in the 6 languages of the United Nations in the BCH. The document also provides information about major improvements and developments of new features and functionalities in the BCH. It talks about the work of the 12th meeting of the Informal Advisory Committee on the Biosafety Clearinghouse. It provides status of records in the BCH. It describes collaboration work carried out with biosafety-related organizations. It lists priorities for future implementation of the BCH and provides suggested draft decisions. Next slide, please. The second document related to this agenda item is the information document, CBD CP MOP 11/in/3, and it's titled Report of the Survey on Establishing Linkages Between the Biosafety Clearinghouse and National Websites. One of the requests in the decision 10/5 to the Executive Secretary was to explore how the BioLand tool can be used to facilitate linkages between national websites and the BCH. In response to this request, the Secretariat conducted a survey to better understand the needs of countries for their national websites. Based on the results of the survey, the Secretariat designed the architecture of a model national Biosafety Clearinghouse website and developed a mock-up, which was presented to the BCH IAC and was well received. The information document provides detailed information about the results of the survey, as well as screenshots of the mockup, and also describes the features of the BioLand tool. The mockup of a national biosafety website will also be presented at the BCH Clearinghouse Training Workshop, which will be held on the 26th October in Cali, Colombia. And for information, please go to the link you see on the screen, which contains agenda item and registration procedure for the BCH workshop, and we'll look forward to your active participation. Next slide, please. And this slide just shows you a preview of the mockup of the National Biosafety website. This is the homepage. And please, Ulrika, if you could click on other slides. And these are different menu pages. Please click more. I think 3 more times. Thank you. If the decision is adopted by parties at the COP-MOP 11, the Secretariat will develop, based on this mockup and using the BioLand tool, a customized functional website to be offered to parties who wish to develop national biosafety websites with linkages to the BCH. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. We'll now move to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 11 on risk assessment and risk management. Over to you, Austin.
Thank you so much, Wazi. Good day, everyone. So I will start by presenting on agenda item 11 on risk assessment and risk management. And just as a background, in decision CP 1010, there's 3 parts to this. There's 3 main parts to this decision, among other things. But the first being the endorsement of the previous ad hoc technical expert group to develop additional voluntary guidance materials to support the case-by-case risk assessment of living modified organisms containing engineered gene drives. An ADTEG was established to develop these materials. Also, following the process laid out in Annex to Decision CP 913, parties were invited to submit information on their needs and priorities for further guidance on topics of risk assessment. And as well in this decision, the COP-MOP decided to consider the topic of living modified fish and the potential for further guidance at the upcoming 11th meeting of COP-MOP. The Executive Secretary was requested to commission a detailed outline to support the work of the expert group, convene online discussions of the open-ended online forum, synthesize information submitted by parties to support the work of the expert group, convene 2 meetings of the expert group, and create dedicated web pages on the BCH for living modified fish and engineered gene drives. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the intersessional period between the COP-MOPs. So starting in February 2023, there was a submissions of information process to support the work of the ATEG, followed by the first session of the online forum. Following this, the Secretariat commissioned a detailed outline, which was developed by the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. An outline was provided to the second round of online discussions in August 2023, And this fed into the first meeting of the ATEG, which was held in early November 2023. At the ATEG redrafted and restructured the detailed outline and formed regionally balanced drafting groups to further develop the guidelines with a view of, at their second meeting, finalizing the additional voluntary guidance materials. Due to the low number of submissions in response to needs and priorities of parties, a second round of submissions of information was also requested, and this was held between December 2023 and January 2024. At the second meeting of the Ad Hoc Technical Expert Group, the expert members reviewed the information submitted by parties for both submissions of information for their needs and priorities and finalized the additional voluntary guidance materials. This fed into the 26th meeting of the subsidiary body in Nairobi in May 2024. And then following SABSTA, the document was formally edited and presented for consideration at the upcoming 11th meeting of the COP-MOP. Next slide, please. So these are the documents related to risk assessment and risk management, starting with document 11/9, the additional voluntary guidance materials, as well as the recommendation resulting from the 26th meeting of SABSTA, so SABSTA recommendation 26/5. Also, as well as the information documents which were provided for SABSTA. So this included the document on risk assessment, the working document for the 26th meeting, as well as a report of that Ad Hoc Technical Expert Group. There's also other resources that we'd like to highlight, including the dedicated web pages on living modified fish and engineered gene drives, as well as the report of the Global Risk Assessment Workshop, as well as we'd like to highlight the study of on risk assessment of living modified fish from the previous intersessional period. Next. For the additional voluntary guidance materials, just to briefly overview the content of the document. The document has 7 main sections and several annexes. Ulrika, could you press next again, please? Thank you. So the document is aligned with Annex 3 of the protocol and builds upon existing risk assessment methodologies and guidance materials and takes a problem formulation approach. In line with the decision, CP 1010, which requested a special focus on mosquitoes, mosquito-related information has been integrated into the text as boxes. The document itself, as I mentioned, has 7 main sections. So it starts with a scope and objective, followed by an introduction, followed by a general section on engineered gene drives, followed by general risk assessment considerations for engineered gene drives, followed by a recommendation of the acceptability of risk and identification of risk management strategies, followed by monitoring, followed by related issues. The annexes deal with modeling, uncertainty, the WHO guidance framework for testing genetically modified mosquitoes, taxonomic classification of Culicidae, the current landscape for the development of LMOs containing engineered gene drives for disease vector control, engineered gene drive systems, followed by a list of terms. Next, please, Ulrika. Next again. And this is just a screenshot of the dedicated web pages. So in this case, we're just showing the web page on living modified fish, which has been made available. It's on the protocol website under risk assessment and risk management. Next, please, Ulrika. Regarding agenda item 12, detection and identification of living modified organisms, just as a background, in decision CP 1011, the COP-MOP welcomed the publication of Biosafety Technical Series 5, Training Manual on the Detection and Identification of Living Modified Organisms in the context of the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. It also recognized the importance of the network of laboratories for the detection and identification of living modified organisms. The COP-MOP invited parties and relevant organizations to submit information on their experiences with new detection techniques, detecting newly developed and unauthorized LMOs, developing reference materials, as well as ongoing collaborations involving national and regional laboratories. The COP-MOP then requested the subsidiary body to consider the information submitted and prepare a recommendation on the need to update this training manual. The Executive Secretary was requested to continue the work mandated under Decision CP 911, among other things, convening the network of laboratories. It was requested to also synthesize submitted information and enhance capacity building. So in response to this, Ulrika, next slide, please. This is what the intersessional period looked like. So we started with our International Conference on GMO Analysis and New Genomic Techniques, which was convened in March 2023 in collaboration with the government of Germany, followed by a submissions of information period from September to November 2023, online discussions of the network of laboratories in November 2023, and this fed into the 26th meeting of SABSTA, which was held in May 2024. Next slide, please. The main documents for detection and identification relate to the recommendation from SABSTA. So this is SABSTA recommendation 26/6 on detection and identification. And then there are also important information documents such as SABSTA 26 document 6 on detection and identification, SABSTA 26 information document 1, the synthesis of information on detection and identification of living modified organisms, and as well SABSTA 26 information document 2, summary of the online discussions of the network of laboratories for the detection and identification of living modified organisms. As well, we would also like to highlight the workshop report from the International Conference on GMO Analysis and New Genomic Techniques. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, another COP16 agenda item that takes place in proximity is a COP agenda item 24 on synthetic biology. So as a background, in decision 1531, the COP decided not to require further analysis on whether synthetic biology is a new and emerging issue. It established a process for broad and regular horizon scanning, monitoring, and assessment. It established a multidisciplinary ad hoc technical expert group, and it invited parties, other governments, Indigenous peoples and local communities, relevant organizations to submit information. It requested the Executive Secretary to convene the open-ended online forum to support the work of the multidisciplinary ADTEG, synthesize the submissions of information, and convene at least one meeting of the multidisciplinary ADTEG. The multidisciplinary ADTEG was requested to review and assess the information gathered and consider technological developments vis-a-vis the 3 objectives of the convention, identify and prioritize trends in synthetic biology, identify capacity building, technology transfer, and knowledge sharing needs, and prepare a report and make recommendations to the subsidiary body. The subsidiary body was then requested to consider the report of the outcomes of the horizon scanning process and make recommendations to COP, and as appropriate, the COP MOPs. Next slide, please. So this is the overview of the intersessional period between COP15 and 16. So it started with submissions of information from February to March 2023, as well as a first round of the open-ended online forum in March 2023. So this was to gather information and also provide potential options for performing horizon scanning under the convention. At the first meeting of the multidisciplinary ad hoc technical expert group, the experts developed CBD-built horizon scanning process for this intersessional period, which had started with submissions by experts, as it was a multidisciplinary expert-driven process. So this was held in September 2023. This information was then synthesized and then provided for a virtual meeting, the second meeting of the multidisciplinary ATAG, which was in October 2024, which prioritized 17 trends and issues in synthetic biology. This then led into a further submissions of information process and a second round of the open-ended online forum to gather additional information to support the assessment step, which would occur at the third meeting, the second physical meeting, but the third meeting in January 2024 of the multidisciplinary ad hoc technical expert group. In addition, there was also a parallel and complementary literature review that was done that started in December and then underwent a peer review process from January to March, which aimed to support the discussions of the multidisciplinary ad hoc technical expert group, as well as the discussions at the 26th meeting of the subsidiary body. Ulrika, could you press next, please? At the third meeting of the multidisciplinary ATAG, 5 trends and issues in synthetic biology were assessed. This included the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning, self-spreading vaccines for wildlife, development of engineered gene drives to control vector-borne diseases and invasive species, self-limiting insect systems, and inequity in the participation of developing countries in the field of synthetic biology. Following the third meeting of the multidisciplinary ad hoc technical expert group, there was a peer review process on the outcomes as well as the methodology, which then fed into the 26th meeting of the SABSTA. Next slide, please. For synthetic biology, these are the documents that are relevant, starting with the recommendation resulting from SABSTA. So this is SABSTA 26 recommendation 26/4 on synthetic biology, as well as some important information documents, including the document made available for SABSTA, so SABSTA 26 document 4 on synthetic biology, which was made available in all 6 languages of the UN. So this includes an overview of the methodology taken, outcomes of the horizon scanning process, information on capacity building, technology transfer, and knowledge sharing, review of the process by the ATAG, a refined methodology, and recommendations of the multidisciplinary expert group to SABSTA. In addition, there's a few other information documents. So SABSTA 26 information document 4, the additional prioritized trends and issues in synthetic biology. Information document 5, the literature review of the trends and issues in synthetic biology. So this was following a peer review process. And then information document 6, the synthesis of peer review comments on the outcomes of and the methodology of the horizon scanning process. Next slide, please. I'm done. Thank you so much.